Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so glad to have everybody here. We are so excited for this panel session. We have an amazing panel that you all will meet in just a minute, but I wanted to take a minute just to welcome you to the webinar and to say thank you for taking some time out of your day to be here with us today and joining us. I think it'll be well worth your while. It's an honor for me to have this panel here and available to us, and they've put in a lot of time and have so much knowledge and wisdom, and I'm excited to hear everything that they have to say. But before we get started with that, I'd like each of them just to take a moment to introduce themselves so we can get to know them before we jump into the questions. So with that being said, Todd, you want to go ahead and kick it off?
Yeah, thanks, Emily. Really excited to be here today, guys. Todd Barber, Director of Talent Acquisition with Harbor Group Management. Really excited to talk about, obviously, everyone on this call probably knows the kind of the landscape we're in with talent and hiring, and the other members on the panel. Really excited to hear the answers to, the questions that have been submitted, and really thankful to Emily for asking me to be on the panel. So thank you.
Fred, next up.
Thanks, Emily. I'll echo what Todd indicated. Very excited to be on this call and present to everybody. Thanks, Entryway, for putting this all together. Fred Kapel, I'm the Vice President of HR for Independence Realty Trust. Been in multifamily recruiting or HR for about 25 years, and hopefully we got some great information to share with you today.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Lisa Russo, and I am the Vice President of Property Talent Acquisition for Asset Living. We are solely a third-party property manager, and while we're based in Houston, we have over 300,000 units nationwide that we support. And so some of my answers today are really going to be talking from a decentralized environment. So while myself and my team, we really support the infrastructure of recruiting at Asset Living, when it comes down to actually determining who will be the best hire at one of our assets, that's really the community and the community managers and regional managers who ultimately make that decision.
Hi, everybody. My name's Marlena, Taynor. Reiterate again, really happy to be here and honored to be on this panel with these fabulous folks. I lead early careers for Greystar. So my team focuses on corporate recruiting for internships, entry-level roles, and then we're very closely connected to our on-site kind of regional US property management team. So I did lean on a lot of my colleagues to make sure I'm presenting a cohesive collective perspective from Greystar on the whole. So happy to be here, and I'll pass it back to Emily.
Thank you, everybody. So here's a little bit about our agenda today. We just did our introductions from the panel. We're going to go through some questions. We have lots of great questions that were submitted by many of you. Also some teammates of our panel members, some of our Entryway team members as well. So we'll go through as many questions as we can. We have quite a few, almost 20, I think, questions. We probably don't have enough time to get through all of those. So I promise at the end of the webinar afterwards, we will get those questions answered and we will get those answers out to you and share those. I haven't figured out yet how we're going to get those answers to you, but we will. So we will just go through as many that we can get through. As you have questions, as we're going through, use the chat feature and put those questions in there, and then we'll have a Q&A session at the end. We have about 10 minutes left that we're going to go ahead and break and then make sure we have time for some Q&A sessions. So if you want to revisit anything that we talk about, or if you have any other questions, we'll have time to do that. So we're going to go ahead and get started with question number 1. I'm going to minimize this. All right, so topic number 1, how to lead and engage employees in a time when employee engagement and discretionary effort for a greater good is at an all-time low. So we're going to go ahead and kick that off. And I think Fred and Lisa wanted to talk about this one for us.
Sure. Lisa, you want to go first and I'll jump in?
Absolutely. All right. So Asset Living is a very acquisition based company. So over the last few years, we have experienced immense growth. So we know that within employee engagement, we want our tenured employees and also our new employees that have come to us via acquisitions to feel heard and to be able to express some of the challenges that they might be feeling in certain aspects of the business to create change, right? So we know that engagement comes from feeling safe to speak up and to also create some change in a specific space of the business. So over the last year, over the last year, we have really been intentional about providing ways for both formal and informal surveys for our employees. So as we've kind of created a space for them to speak up about some of their challenges and how to feel more engaged and connected to Asset, we knew that there were two aspects of the business that we could improve on. The first being internal mobility, so how we're able to really capitalize on employees that are raising their hand to say, hey, I'm ready for my next step and I really want to stay with Asset Living. So how to make that process as easy as possible for our employees. And the second piece was a referral incentive program. So historically, our referral bonuses at Asset Living were really tied to the client at the property. So if the client was willing to pay a referral bonus, our employees could participate in that program. So it was really hard in the third-party environment to have a standard referral bonus program company-wide that all employees on the property level could really participate in. So knowing that feedback, we really tried to receive it and put into place some initiatives that attacked both those aspects of the business. So just about a month ago, we actually rolled out a best-in-class internal mobility platform and also referral bonus platform that's all in the same software. So now our employees are actually able to easily raise their hand to say, I'm ready for my next step, be able to navigate the internal transfer process pretty smoothly. And then all employees are actually able to promote jobs at Asset Living to get excited about the company that they currently work at and to promote opportunities with their friends and family. And the way we were able to really get around being tied to the client's purse strings in that regard is we've created a space where it's more of a game or gamification. So while our employees are sending links out to their friends and family, they are gaining points to be on a leaderboard that's changed out quarterly. So we have our top 20 employees who are really, kind of waving the Asset Living flag that, again, it's kind of a fun game with all of our employees. So they're able to see who's at the top of the leaderboard. And then whoever has the most points and that leaderboard capacity are able to buy certain items through one of our partners through Snappy, which I know a lot of properties utilize that vendor partner as well. So that's the way we were able to kind of get around the third party and client tie, but also really try to promote referral bonus programs with our employees because we know that that's so important.
It's hard to follow, Lisa. Great information there. So at IRT, we realized that there's a difference between engagement and happiness. And so we needed to define that. So happiness, people may be looking for people to be happy at work, but you may have someone, let's say a leasing professional who comes in, does nothing all day, gets a paycheck. They're very happy, but that's really not what we're looking for in engagement. So it's that enthusiasm, the investment, the above and beyond. So we did our best within all our managers to define engagement. And then once they had a true definition of it, had them go back to their teams and discuss a handful of different engagement areas and get the feedback from them on any roadblocks or what engagement means to them in different categories. And based on that feedback, the managers then built action plans. And we're in the process right now of really only addressing the one or two, what we call opportunity areas amongst all the different communities. So engagement at one community could be different in another based on the staff. But we regularly are doing action plans focusing on one or two parts of engagement. And about every 6 months, we're getting feedback from the staff to see if what we're doing is really moving the needle as far as engagement goes. But we really want to move those roadblocks, if they exist, when it comes to that discretionary effort, and then check to see if the staff feel the same way that we're trying to make at least an atmosphere that they can be attached to outside of just a salary.
Thank you. I was going to take notes, but that was so much information. I wasn't able to get all the notes. I'm going to have to go back and grab those. All right, we'll go to question number 2 then. Or topic. This one's also a topic. So industry staffing and recruiting trends. And Lisa is going to speak about this one for us.
Awesome. Thanks, Emily. So there's really 3 areas that I wanted to briefly touch on. And the first 2 are honestly counterintuitive, but I'll kind of do a deep dive into how this makes sense. So the first one being technological advances within the recruiting space. So as you know, if you've done any research in the last year or so, AI is really coming into the fold with several aspects of TA. And so what we recognize is while we need to move the needle in technological advances, the main piece that we also want to leave into is going back to basics, right? So how are we enhancing our resident experiences overall? And these truly can partner and go hand in hand. So even though we're leaning into more technologically advanced models, it is going to help alleviate some of the administrative burden that a lot of our teams are feeling on site, whether you have a centralized or decentralized recruiting model. Any of these automations I find to be critical and really valuable, so we can take it back to basics and really focus on the day-to-day pieces of multifamily, which is focusing on residents and making sure that they have an excellent experience. So we've most recently rolled out an AI-based applicant tracking system that we launched in October that's been really successful. And it's really taking away the administrative burden on the front end of the recruiting process. So resume reviewing, kind of those basic screening questions to assess if someone has their EPA certification or a certain amount of experience. All of that is really automated on the front end to help really filter out the best candidate to pass along to our community and regional managers for final approval. Another piece to this is it automates the interview process as well. So instead of going back and forth with candidates with what date and time works for you, our AI assistant really helps bridge that gap and assist candidates and the hiring managers in that interview scheduling process as well. Again, just to alleviate that administrative burden, to really lean into enhancing that resident experience so they're not stuck in interviews all day or stuck in that, paperwork that comes with recruiting as well. And the last topic I just wanted to briefly cover was strategic hiring. So especially in the maintenance space, our clients are getting really creative in the positions that we're hiring for, because coming out of COVID, this is something that the multifamily industry is up against, when we have such a long for work-life balance, or individuals got kind of a taste of what remote work looks like, especially in the maintenance side where we have on-call hours and working weekends. It can really be hard to attract individuals to those types of roles. So we've implemented floating maintenance technicians, floating maintenance supervisors on some of our properties that really help alleviate some of the stress, especially if we have an open requisition at that asset. They're able to kind of fill in and help the teams feel supported and not so, running around with the chicken with their head cut off. So it's easier to kind of bridge that gap. And again, just to make them feel supported, especially when there's an open position and more hours need to be worked to get things done. I've also seen a client completely centralize their maintenance. So this is something that's new for this particular client, and it does make sense for the types of assets that they do own. Jury is still out whether this has been a successful model in the maintenance space. So I'm happy to follow up in the next 6 to 9 months to see if this is something that was valuable. But again, they were kind of trying to think outside the box and be creative with some of the pain points that they were experiencing. And the last model that I just wanted to cover briefly is hiring skill-specific technicians. So we have another client who has hired a very skilled HVAC technician, in addition to somebody who oversees all the pools, and then also appliance repair. So each aspect that we typically all need in one for either a technician or supervisor, they've actually broken down those skill sets and hired individuals that just specialize in that particular piece of maintenance, and they're able to float around to the different assets based on needs as well. So again, the 3 things we're really seeing: technological advances, bringing it back down to basics with enhancing the resident experience, and then lastly, strategic hiring.
So I have a question or follow-up question on the AI assistant. Can you tell us what software that is, or what product it is?
Absolutely. It's called Paradox.
Okay. Someone will probably ask that if they haven't already, but I was
No
curious
worries.
about it. And I can't wait to hear about that maintenance, the centralized maintenance as well. I can't wait to hear about that in a few months.
Yes.
All right, question number 3. What strategies can HR implement to help reduce turnover for high turnover positions like tech and leasing? And Fred, I think you were going to talk on this one for us.
Thanks, Emily. So tech and leasing is tough. I mean, naturally, unless you're going to provide true development growth plans and have that opportunity available, the challenge is when the opportunity doesn't necessarily exist. Let's say on the leasing side, maybe you don't have high assistant community manager turnover, or on the tech side, you don't have high maintenance supervisor turnover. So the goal is to still maintain those people and keep them interested in staying and developing with the company. So what we do as far as strategy goes, implementation, is primarily focused on a lot of the managers within the multifamily arena were really good at leasing or really good assistant managers. And then all of a sudden they're put into a manager's role, but they don't necessarily have the staff leadership aspect of it. So here at IRT, we've implemented processes where all of our managers can partner up with the HR team on best practices, on how to address performance concerns or how to develop staff. So it's a true partnership that really, I believe, our managers lean on, and really the HR team leans on, with an ability to put forth the best practice to avoid the self-inflicted turnover, but allow people to see the big picture. You know, one thing we look at from a staffing perspective is a lot of times people look at their hourly rate, right? And then they might get 50 cents or $1 down the street. But we, once a year, send a handout out to all of our staff that, yes, it talks about their base salary, their commissions, but it also covers their 401k match, their rent discount, their stock award, all the ancillary income that they may not get, how much we pay for benefits, their company funded benefits. So we give them a total compensation package to where that maybe quarter or 50 cents down the road doesn't necessarily look as attractive. So we're trying to paint a picture of career versus job. And we just have to clearly identify what the career looks like as opposed to just the day-to-day.
And so did you say you give those like compensation package reviews to each person annually?
It's individualized. A lot of HR systems will develop those naturally, but we
Okay.
take ours a little bit deeper and talk about our 401k and our stock, how
Yeah.
much we pay in benefits and all of that. So, I mean, just to give you an example, what it ends up looking like is you may have a leasing professional who makes $16 an hour, but when you include all the other income sources, that 16 ends up being about $34 an hour.
Right.
We want
Yeah.
them to, we fully understand what the compensation packages staying working with IRT as opposed to just looking at maybe that extra quarter or dollar.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Thank you. All right. Question number 4. How do you get people to stick within their first year of work in our industry? And I think Marlena and Todd were both going to speak to this question. So whoever wants to go first on this one.
Go ahead, Marlena.
Yeah, I'm happy to start. I don't think it's rocket science on this side. I think it's kind of the foundational aspects of transparency and honesty and accurate hiring on the front end. And what I mean when I say that is if you set the right expectations from the beginning, you're transparent through the recruiting process about the schedule, the responsibilities, you have the right assessment tools and interview questions to figure out if this is the right person for this job. Allow the candidates to meet with the person that's going to be their supervisor, get a realistic view of not only the role, but the property. Like they should spend time on site so that they're making a really informed decision. I think that is like crucial to then set you up for that first year to even be possible. That level of honesty is going to build trust. And then I think once they're with us, it's about identifying, making sure we're hiring under strong managers, give the managers the tools to be good leaders, to be good coaches. They should be having consistent touch bases with the new team member and all their team members. But I think that support, we also have a mentorship program. So outside of their manager, giving them another lifeline in the business, someone to coach and advise and just go to with questions, I think is really helpful. And the company culture. I think the way that comes to life is what's going to keep somebody, to Fred's point, at your property versus somewhere else down the road for 50 cents. If you have that company culture that can't be matched and it feels like a healthy environment, and I think that makes a difference. And the last piece is recognition. I think when we can go out of our way to point out when someone's done a good job and recognize their contributions, they're much more likely to stay. So I'll pass it over to you, Todd, but those are some of the foundational pieces that I think are key there.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, a couple things just to add in addition to, we spend a lot of time and effort on onboarding, right? 30, 60, 90 plans, regardless of employee, who they work for, job titles, that 30, 60, 90 check-in point, making sure the role, the expectations are being met. They know what their role is. First and foremost, we did, I think a lot of companies get the individual there and it's like off to the races, right? So taking that step back and making sure there's a good plan, a good foundation in for the new associate. One other thing I'd like to add, something that we've been doing for probably about 18 months, just career pathing, right? When people get here, if it's the maintenance assistant or a maintenance tech, something that's helped our retention rates is they want to see that transition, right? How to get to that next step, what they have to do to get to that next level, what certifications and what comes with it, from an hourly standpoint or bonuses and things like that. So it's given our workforce a kind of a something to strive for, right? So they're not just here to make a few bucks and then like Fred mentioned, leave for the dollar or two down the road. So that's been really cool. And then I think when individuals leave within a year or within that time, it's critical, right, to get an exit interview or a pulse survey on what happened, right? So obviously you're always going to have a level of that, but like where did we miss? So we've really focused on taking that data and actioning that data. And that's been really critical for us.
Thank you. All right, question number 5. I have so many questions, like follow-up questions to each one of these for each of you, but to keep things moving, I will keep my mouth shut. So question number 5, are there any retention strategies that have worked well for you? Fred, can you speak to this one for us?
Yeah, there's 3 I'd like to highlight. The first one is, excuse me, hiring the right people for us as opposed to just the right people. So the very best, say, leasing professional might not be the very best leasing professional for our company based on our values and our mission, and even down to the community level. For example, you may have a great leasing professional, great experience, but they don't take to change management very well. And you as a manager realize that at our property, change is something that we regularly do. And so we've really started to focus on the right person for us as opposed to maybe the right person, if that tends to make sense. The second is a development hour. So we implemented about 3 or 4 years ago, once or twice a week when we open at 9 o'clock, we keep the doors closed until 10. And that's a development hour that our managers and staff are either doing online learning, talking about development, what their initiatives are. And yes, sometimes it leans itself over to the day-to-day management. But generally speaking, our staff know that one or 2 hours a week, they're going to have their manager's attention and talk about development. And that's really helped our retention as well. And thirdly, we have a senior leadership team. And for the last 2 or 3 years, they have been, call it road shows as far as town halls. So our CEO, our CFO, our head of operations, all go to different markets about every quarter and meet every single employee at their community. And they spend a half a day with them just doing Q&A and having lunch. And so those are 3 things I think we've really highlighted the last 2 or 3 years that has really been driving our engagement down. I'm sorry, driving our retention down.
Yeah, thank you. That would do it for me if I was an on-site employee. Like all of those things to me, like it all speaks to me. So good stuff. All right. Question number 6. How do potential candidates typically hear about your company? So Todd and Marlena. Marlena, why don't you go first, and then we'll toss it over to Todd.
Sure. So some of the ones that work really well for us, I mean, referrals and word of mouth is huge. I think, again, when you go back to that transparency and honesty, I think when someone can say, hey, I work there or I live there and they have positive experiences, I think that speaks volumes. So referrals are definitely a big part of the puzzle for us. Career site is another big one. The standard LinkedIn, Indeed, those are two of our bigger, I'll say, like platform partnerships that drive a lot of volume. And then I think a couple other ones that come to mind would be like connections with some of our trusted partners. Obviously, Entryway being one of those. But even, if we work with a client who has somebody who would be great for somewhere else in the country or a different, site, we enjoy kind of making those connections. And again, it speaks volumes to what that relationship means if they're willing to, send somebody our way for somewhere else. So those are some of the big ones, but Todd, I'll let you fill in some more.
Yeah, no, thank you, Marlena. In addition to everything she said, I think a couple big ones for us. Obviously, our social media taking it that step further, right? So, you know, uh, people want to see what like a real day in the life is, so trying to bring that piece that from an Instagram, from a TikTok to get, some of the younger audience, if you will. That's been really, really cool, and we've seen some really cool wins from that standpoint. Um, I think the other piece I'm thinking of one specific example, but I did want to bring it up here. So like, when you're driving down the interstate and you see a big billboard. So we toyed around with some of our hard to fill markets. We have some assets in some pretty hard areas, and we actually tracked impressions and kind of what it did to our traffic. We bought a pretty large pack of billboards, and it was really cool to see kind of taking it old school and doing some billboard advertising. So that was kind of fun. But yeah, so the last piece I would say is Glassdoor in the review sites, right? As opposed to, sometimes when people hear Glassdoor, they think, people go and just bash the company. We've spent a significant amount of time and effort and money into our Glassdoor campaign, and, trying to paint a real picture, right? Good, bad, ugly. I mean, everyone's going to have a different experience. So it's just how we responded to it. And that's been a huge avenue, source of potential candidates for us. So that's about it.
Thank you. Question number 7. What's your current time to hire? Lisa and Todd. Lisa, you want to take it first? Give Todd a minute to drink some water.
Nope, bro.
All right, Lisa, we can't hear you if you're trying to talk. She was having some speaker issues.
Hear me now?
Yes, can.
Awesome.
Perfect.
I apologize.
No, good.
And just to prep you, it may happen again. So just give me the thumbs down and I'll make sure to alter my speakers. So our current time to hire at Asset Living right now is about 20 days. So that's the amount of time it takes from the job to actually be open in our applicant tracking system to someone being sent an offer, go through pre-employment. So officially when the job is closed. So this also captures the amount of time in background and drug screen as well. So right now it's at 20 days. Now, again, we're a decentralized recruiting environment. So while my team provides a pipeline of quality candidates, it does tend to bottleneck at the community and regional managers to get candidates across the finish line. So a lot of what we try to implement are strategies and ways to really train our community and regional managers to know what to do in different aspects of the recruiting workflow, and then support them to make sure that they do have quality candidates to really start to interview. So just wanted to also now note that 20 days is also down a week from before we implemented our AI system several months ago. So before it was kind of teetering between 27 and 30 days. So we have seen an improvement and luckily an ROI on that investment as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. I can't wait now to hear what Todd's answer is, because
I
20
think-
days seems really good.
I think after Lisa's answer, I'm having technical difficulties. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, so it depends on the job, right? I think all encompassing we're high 30s, but an area, a couple things to note here. Our maintenance hiring tends to trend a little bit higher on time to fill. But an avenue we've been kind of pushing over the last probably about 6 months is quality of hire over time to hire because um time to hire only tells us like a certain time, right? So we've been looking at ways to track our quality of hire in conjunction with time to fill and time to hire, but kind of trying to drift away a little bit from it. But high 30s to mid 40s depending on job title I think is where we're at, and trending downward in some areas, but overall we've held that for the last about 12 months.
Click happy. Well, that's still not bad. Like I feel like that's still a good thing. And the quality of hire versus the time. Anyway, I diverse. Okay. Question number 8. I think we have a few people that are going to answer this one. How are you finding people who are interested in getting into the maintenance field who have not yet? So Marlena, Lisa, and Todd are all going to speak to this one. Fred could feel free to chime in as well. Marlena, do you want to go first?
Sure, happy to. So when it comes to finding people who are interested, I know we touched on this at the beginning. I think we're all feeling that it's a limited talent pool, those that have the experience, and we know that clients and teams always want someone with experience. So finding the people who are the right fit, to your point, Todd, the quality, the characteristics, the person who's inclined to do well in this space, but hasn't yet, it's a tricky one. So Entryway is certainly one that helps connect us to candidates who have related experiences, not always directly in the maintenance or leasing field, but related to what they've done. I think Entryway is a good option there. Getting involved early with like CTE programs at high schools, that's really helpful. I think, like local nonprofit orgs that are helping with, employment are really helpful options. And then trade schools. I know a lot of our teams, I see Melissa on here. I know she's been pretty active with some of those trade school connections, and they're really valuable resources to find the people who are eager, and then find people who are already developing the technical skills but haven't applied it in a professional setting yet, and then trying to build more employer awareness in this field. I'll say some of the platforms where you can connect with high school students, like digital platforms and profile pages, some of those are helpful too, just to build awareness that we as an industry exist and that they can go into this space. Depending on the role and what they're interested in, they can go right out of high school. They can come to us right out of trade school. They don't have to build the professional experience before coming to us. So those are a few, but I'll pass it over. Lisa, I don't know if you want to go next. I'll pass the mic.
Absolutely. Okay, good. You can hear me. So just to piggyback off of all of Marlena's kind of tips and tricks and getting plugged in with the high school students, for me, that is like the perfect cohort to dive into when it comes to exposing individuals to the multifamily industry. And one way that I found to be really successful in kind of getting in front of these high school students and kind of knowing what events are happening in that space is to become a part of a business and industry advisory board. So any of these local high schools that have these successful CTAE programs typically have a business and industry advisory board that's completely on a volunteer basis. But business is wanting to get in front of high school students who are really interested and have these technical skills. And then on the flip side, the school is also needing business partners in the community to help connect these students to opportunities. So I would just start at your local high school and ask, do you have a business and industry advisory board that's looking for particular members? Because that's been a great way for me to figure out what career fairs are coming up in the community, where these students are wanting to lean into, and specifically within the maintenance space, leaning into their HVAC programs has been really helpful. Again, just being a part of these advisory boards. So just another little tidbit that I would recommend looking into.
Yeah. In addition, so we've done a bulk of what Marlena and Lisa just discussed. I think a critical piece is knowing what soft skills you're looking for and what obviously meshes well with your organization, right? If these individuals have never worked in maintenance, you got to understand and identify and interview or find those people that have those soft skills. We do an apprenticeship program too, to where, individuals that have been identified with these soft skills come in and they get a rigorous 10 week training program to to that first 10 weeks, right? It's the, kind of cut their teeth and so you can kind of see the maintenance field. And then after that, if they're still interested, we have another 10-week kind of course, kind of advanced course. So I would just say knowing those soft skills and what you're looking for, and then when they get here, being able and having that rigorous training and something that they can have a hardcore curriculum to work towards.
Thanks. And I just realized what time it is. I said we were going to have a kind of a hard stop on our question bank that we had prepared. So we have time for Q&A. So I'm going to advance through these slides. You will see several more questions. And they're amazing questions. So I'm very sad that we don't have time to go through them all, but I want to make sure we get to the questions that were submitted during the call. So I'm just going to advance through. Don't even look, because we'll try to get to these some other way. We didn't even get to the entryway questions. I buried some entryway questions in here. We didn't even get to those. Okay, so I'm gonna look at the questions that have come in. Oh yeah, we have quite a few. So when you use tools to solicit feedback from your employees in their 30, 60, 90 check-ins, do you use anonymous surveys in addition to one-on-one reviews? And I forget who spoke to that. 30, 60, 90 may have been Fred. But do you do anonymous surveys or do you do one-on-one reviews?
So we do a 30-day interview. So after the first 30 days, the recruiter who hired you will contact you and ask a handful of questions about your onboarding. And that is not anonymous. And we stress it's not anonymous because we're not pointing fingers at anybody. We will try to know what your experience was like. And the end goal is, if you've got feedback that we could have done something better, we want to know that. No repercussions whatsoever. Now, if there were issues or concerns on that 30-day, we have a follow-up 60-day phone call. But if the first 30 days was smooth and you had a good experience, that's all we do as far as check-ins. But we'll follow up at the 60-day mark if there were concerns, if there were opportunities for us to make it a better onboarding experience for you. But we try to stress to our staff, even through engagement surveys, that this is about the data, not about the pointing of the fingers. And we want to know where you're engaged or where you're not engaged, and what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong. And if you bring to us something that we need to spend time and attention on, we'll congratulate you and recognize you for doing such. And that kind of culture, I think, has allowed us to have an open door where staff feel very comfortable. Not all, but many feel very comfortable providing feedback, whether it's positive or negative.
All right. Yeah, that's great. And this is kind of a piggyback off of that, or a continuation. Have you used stay interviews as a retention strategy? So if anybody wants to speak to that, feel free.
We don't. So if Todd, Lisa, or Marlene, if you do, please respond.
So it's always a tricky one, right? We don't current state. We did at one point in time. Yeah, I depends on kind of who you ask if you find value in them. I mean, I think our check-in process, kind of what Fred mentioned, being really real about the check-in and intentional about the check-ins, that has almost caused us to eliminate our stay interviews. People, like Fred said, you got to create that space to where, when people hear anonymous survey and it's coming from HR, they're all like, always like, yeah, not, it's not anonymous. That's their first thought. So I think, having that, hey, this is intentional. We are checking in. We will take this information very seriously, and action on that, what we get, has been critical for us.
right, I'll move to the next one. It is so important to keep the job titles relevant when it comes to searches on Indeed. Do you have more success with, let's say, service tech versus maintenance tech, or community manager versus property manager? Everybody shook your head, so you probably all have something to say about that one.
We typically, at least in recent, we've been focused on that maintenance or service tech differentiation. And we tend to see that maintenance tech is more in line with what we're looking for. We still have teams that use service tech, and it's still part of our like naming structure. But when we post jobs, we tend to see that maintenance tech gets more applicable, candidates. Service tech starts to get into like cars and automotive and starts to kind of, I don't know if it like auto, AI apply gets people thinking the wrong thing, but at least for us, we lean more towards maintenance tech from a success standpoint, but team weigh in.
If I could add to that, Marlena, so internally here at IRT, we call service techs service managers, but we advertise using maintenance technician or maintenance supervisor. But once you're hired, your title is service.
Oh, Lisa, we can't hear you. Yeah.
But I could tell you said same.
Yeah. She did.
I could read lips at least. She said same.
Todd, same for you?
Yeah, same for
Yeah,
us. Yep,
yeah.
you got it.
All right. Perfect. One more question in the question pane. How do negative company reviews on career platforms like Glassdoor or even Google impact your recruiting TA efforts? And how do you manage or counteract those? Or is it not an issue or concern?
Yeah, I'll jump in here real quick. I think it's critical for anybody at any level to get the good, the bad, the ugly, right? Glassdoor is going to provide all of that, right? And I think it tells a lot of about an organization when you see a really bad review, but then you see a response with follow-ups and asking more digging questions and things like that. So, I think again, we've spent a lot of time and effort in that to make sure it's real. People are seeing that if someone had a bad experience, we're trying to understand, we're trying to learn from that. I think overall, it hasn't, I guess, necessarily impacted our TA efforts. But it might be a topic of concern when, we reach out to individuals, but we walk through them, during the interview process or whatever, and kind of help alleviate any stressors. We haven't ran into any issues where it's necessarily, had someone not come on board because of a specific review they saw.
And I just noticed that we had more questions in the question pane, not the chat. So I'm going to try to touch on at least one of them. Well, one was, happen to know the cost for the Paradox a month? Lisa, do you happen to, off the top of your head, do you know what Paradox costs you a month?
Probably.
Okay, there you are. I got you. We got you now.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm happy to take that offline because there's so many different packages that Paradox provides. So you can do full applicant tracking system, or you could layer it actually on top of your current ATS if you're not looking to move ATSs if you're already in Workday or one of those, huge engines that would take a lot of work to move. It can also layer on top of that. So they're super customizable with their specific needs, and that would really vary on price too, based on what your specific company needs from a support standpoint.
Got it. Perfect. Well, I will not, we had a couple more questions in there, but we can look at those after the fact. Two came from Entryway individuals, so we'll make sure we speak to those later on. I want to say thank you. I want to end on time. The old trainer in me knows that we need to end on time and let everybody have their day back, but I cannot say thank you enough to the panel for everything that you all have done. It's been, you all are just are superstars in my eyes, and I think everyone else that's on the webinar now sees that as well. So thank you so much for everything that you did to make this happen. We have so many more questions, so we'll regroup and try to figure out how we can get those answered and get those answers shared with everybody that was in attendance, because we only made it about halfway through. And thank you to everyone for attending. Thank you for taking time out of your day. We appreciate you. And, until next time, stay tuned.
Thank you,
Bye,
guys.